And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I am, as always, your very grateful host. I know you know that already, but I just love saying it. I really do. I have said a million times, folks, how grateful I am to you folks, and I'm going to keep saying it another million until God stops putting air in my lungs. Let me just tell you, when we went to 5 days, you folks stepped up. I will be forever grateful for that because you are consuming this content even more than you ever have before. And if you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here doing what I'm doing. So I hope that one of the reasons that you're doing that is because we bring you powerful men from around the world, like the gentleman we have here today, with unique perspectives, good, action steps, things like that. We're here to try and help you with your mission to provide, to protect, to lead, to become better men tomorrow than you are today. That's where we're going to go, and that's what we're going to do. We have an awesome author with us today. I'm going to introduce him in just a moment. You guys who are friends of the program know what we have to do now. That's right. We got to pay some bills. I'm going to go ahead and take a sip of my preferred beverage. Ooh, ouch. I heated it up in between interviews. It's really hot, but man, is it good. You guys all know what we're drinking. Freedom Hill coffee. Deep, dark, rich, bold, beautiful, just like my wife. So they brew a mean bean. It's absolutely fantastic. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans. And you guys all know how important veterans are to us here at Power Man. So we support them. Check them out, Freedom Hill Coffee, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Tell them Power Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of my preferred beverage here so I can keep up with this guy who's across the table from me. All right, we'll be sipping that throughout the episode, but without further ado, let's go ahead and bring this gentleman in here. Let me just tell you, I spent 5 minutes with this guy, and I already cannot wait to hear his perspective and his story. It is unique. I think you guys are going to think the same thing. Please welcome author Larry Bilotta. Larry, how you doing?
All right. Thank you for the opportunity
Okay.
very much.
Looking forward to hearing your perspective on this. You are the author of a book called This Is Not the Woman I Married.
Yes.
Um, I'll tell you what, tell everybody who is Larry Bilotta? What are you about? And how do you end up writing a book like that? What's your story, brother?
So, people say, well, are you a psychologist? I said, no, I'm not a psychologist. I wouldn't go to college to learn to be a psychologist. I don't want to learn that. So, what I did is I went to the school of Marcia. Now, Marcia is the name of my wife of 40 years. And Marcia was the toughest, roughest woman in the world. She was really strong. And so we come from these two childhoods that are very, very different. So we were dramatically different. So she was raised for fighting. I was raised for shutting down. Okay. When I say raised for shutting down, that means when there's a conflict, when there's a upset, there's a tension in the air. I shut down. I shut down and walk away. And that's what my coping ability is. Hers is confrontation. She was raised with parents that confronted. And so she's a confronter and I'm a shutter downer. Well, you already know that the marriage is not going to go well, right? But we had another feature. So her parents and my parents each did the same message. That means you stay married and miserable, and you stay married and miserable for a lifetime. So that's the message we both had. And because we both had that message in our subconscious minds, we had to do it. We had to live through it. We had to go through all the trouble that we had because we had a ton of trouble. And so she was a very strong person that became my teacher. And I made her my teacher because I could learn from this girl. And the reason I could learn from her is because she was very, very confrontational, pressing me, pushing me, become accountable, become reliable, become stable, right? All the things I was not, right? Because I was raised by a gambler and an alcoholic. Okay. Now
Wow.
my parents, who are long gone now that they're long gone, I can tell that they were a gambler and alcoholic, but they didn't want to publish that idea, right? That's what
Gotcha.
they privately did. In the 50s, they were a gambler and an alcoholic,
Okay.
right? So gamblers and alcoholics don't buy groceries. They just don't. And so you're pretty neglected, right? So as a neglected kid, the youngest of three, I had to make my own way. I had to find out what's this world about? What am I supposed to be doing? So I married this girl because I'm attracted to her strength. Now I don't know that at the time in the 70s, but when they elected the what's oh no, I know what they didn't elect him. They fired him. That's what they did. Nixon. They got rid of
Oh,
Nixon. That's when I married her, right? So when they fired Nixon, that's when I started. And then when they elected the second Bush, that's when it ended. Okay, that's 27 years. Okay,
Wow.
so that 27 years was at the hands of a very strong teacher. And so why was she such a strong teacher? Because she taught me things that I couldn't learn on my own. I couldn't do it. I'm self-taught. What do I know? Right? So she's forcing me into the pressure of learning. And so that was a great way to learn because they say, like when they teach doctors, they put them under a lot of pressure, right? You go to college, you're under a lot of pressure with tests. What Marcia put pressure on all day and all night. She was always upset, always angry, always feuding about something, right? So there was always something to learn. And so I could learn because I called myself the learner. I call her the non-learner. So she was the non-learner because she couldn't learn anything from anybody. She had to teach herself, right? So when she discovered something, she knew it. And she didn't want to hear it from me. I'm not her teacher, she's my teacher, right? So that's actually the 40-year marriage that made me what I am today. Because what I had to do is I had to find out, why is this happening? Why am I reacting this way? Why does she think this way? So I had all these why questions, right? And so what I was doing for all those years is I was writing on yellow legal pads. And the yellow legal pad became my way of learning about the situation, about what was really happening. And so I'm writing and writing and writing and writing. And I ended up developing years later, I ended up, all these tools I'm using to teach myself became tools that I put in my course, right? And why did I teach myself? Because I'm suffering. I'm suffering a lot,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Because she's a really hard, angry woman, okay? And as a really hard, angry woman, I had to decide, well, what am I going to do about this? Am I going to become a victim? Am I going to be feeling sorry for myself? I was, woe is me. What am I going to do? Am I going to strike back? Am I going to be angry? Am I like, I couldn't survive in that. I had no identity like that. So I had to become a learner. And so what I kept on doing is writing on these legal pads because I was writing and learning over and over again, year after year after year. So I started when they fired Nixon, and then by the time they elected the second Bush, I was falling in love with my wife. But the reason I was falling in love with my wife is because I was falling in love with myself. I was really learning to love myself for the first time in my life. Because, when you're raised by chaotic people, you don't really love yourself because you really don't know how to love yourself because you don't get it in the beginning. You just don't know it in the middle.
Sure.
So by going through all these lessons, which were very slow, very painful, very messy, very confrontational, I had to learn things. And when I learned them, I like didn't learn them in the beginning. And then I took another wave, and then I learned it. And then they poof up again. I didn't learn it, do it again and again, right? So that I call it. I lived 27 years of a marriage made in hell, but in the 28th year, I fell in love with my wife. But when I say that, for the media, that's the story.
Sure.
But the real story is I fell in love with myself. And when I fell in love with myself, she started to treat me differently. So I started to feel better about me. She started to treat me differently because she was not as threatened by my insecurity. So I was giving off an energy of insecurity. I didn't know that she was receiving this energy of insecurity. I couldn't analyze my energy of insecurity. So all that learning brought me to the 27 years of a marriage made in hell. Now she died in 2019,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
when she died, that was me after like a very suppressive world I lived in. I was living in a communist country, a little condensed communist country, being married to her. So as my teacher, what I talk about to people in my course now is that when you are with a pain provider, the pain provider is your teacher, because without pain you can't learn. Nobody can learn without
Hmm.
pain, without difficulty, without hardship. You really can't learn things because you don't really get the richness of them when you don't get the pressure. So if you just
Okay.
get a casual learning atmosphere where everything's kind of, oh, you can learn it, maybe you can't, right? You don't learn that unless you're a real curious person, right? But when everybody gets into a painful situation, they become real learners. They become real students. And so that's the people who get in my course. The people who get in my course, they get in because they're in a marriage. They get in a marriage. And it's a great place to learn a marriage because what happens is two families raise children, and when they take those children, they send them out into the world, and then they kind of crisscross and bump into each other, and then they decide they're falling in love. And after they fall in love, they think, wow, this feels so good. This is what I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy this. No, you're not. You're not going to buy that because childhood makes marriage. Childhood makes marriage. That's a very big idea. Childhood makes marriage. Why do I say that? Because whatever happens in that childhood is going to be what you marry. So we have a scale, 10 to 0. 10 is the purpose side. Purpose is where you're raised with purpose by parents who like each other, parents who love each other, parents who feel they've got a really good relationship. And if you grow up in that setting, you get really good values like commitment and loyalty and values and kindness and forgiveness. And you get all these values from them, right? And that's a purpose person. And so purpose person is raised in that environment. They're ready for all the big things in life because they can handle it. And they got resilience, for example. So down at the other end of the scale, down to 0, that's where the chaos kids live. And so the scale goes like this: 10, 9, 8, that's where purpose is. 7, 6, 5 is the twilight zone. That's the middle place where you raise yourself. The parents don't really raise you. And then 5 down to 0, that's chaos, which is abandonment, abuse, and neglect. So if you've got all three, that places you at a hard, fast 0. Okay.
Wow.
Because if you're abandoned, if you're abused, if you're neglected, you're a chaos kid.
Yeah.
And so I just got off the phone just a half hour ago with a guy who's a 0 married to a 0. And when you
Wow.
hear the two stories, when you hear the two stories of the two people, uh, horrible things happen with the parents, troubled people, right? And so over the years, I run into 0s married to 0s every once in a while. And sometimes I run into 10s married to 0s, 10s married to 2s, 10s married to 4s, right? Or 8s married to 5s, right? I have that, right? But what I don't have ever is I have no 10s married to 9s. So,
Why is
Rory,
that?
Rory, think about this. I don't ever, in 15 years I've been teaching this course, I have never had a 10 married to a 9. That means a 10 person growing up in a 10 home with parents who teach great values and love each other to another girl who's raised in a 10 home whose parents love each other and valued each other, right? That's a 10 married to a 9. I don't have any of them ever. I've never had one. You know, the other thing I've never had? Nobody in their 20s. Nobody in their 20s is in the course, right? And why do I have nobody in their 20s? Because nobody in their 20s is suffering. They're indestructible. They're going to live forever.
Right.
Because they're in their 20s, they know everything and they're going to be everything and do everything. So they can't get in the course because they have no pain.
Right.
So now I've been doing this for 15 years. Can you imagine the number of interviews I've done? I've done over, I think, over 1,500 interviews.
Wow.
And so
All right.
with all these interviews, I get these patterns of like I'm married to this guy and he's this way and I'm this way, right? And so I have to locate them on the scale. If I don't locate people on the scale, how do I know who I'm talking to? I don't know, right? So if I find out that somebody's a 9 and they're married to a 2, I know a lot because now I know that his values are way up here and their values are way down here, his or hers, right? So when I start to think about that value system, and you start to realize, how do these people do that? How do they, how does a 10 marry does to a 2? The values are horrendously different, right? Because the values of a 2 and a 1 and a 0 are things like lying and distortions and resistance and manipulation and defensiveness, right? That's the values
Mm.
of a 2 and a 1 and a 0, right? What's the values of a 10? Commitment and loyalty and honesty and belief and confidence, right? That's the values of a 10, right? Well, how could they possibly get married? Here's how. It's called the bucker, Bucker. A bucker, like a bucking bronco. What the bucker does is the bucker, and I want to go slow when I say this because people don't know what is a bucker. So a person is raised in a chaos neighborhood, the chaos zone. They're like a 2 or a 1 or a 0. And when they're raised in these, they've got all these values in their subconscious mind, this big vat of subconscious ideas from their childhood, and they're terrible. They're just like they're just you don't even want to hear about them. They're so terrible, right? But that's what happened to these kids, right? And so now they marry somebody from the top of the scale. Well, now what do? Well, they start this process of, I call it 1, 2, 3. Number one, they make a decision. Stop. I'm not doing that. And what is that? That subconscious message came up from the vat below, and they said, "Stop. I'm not doing that." So they said, "Oh, 4, 5, 10 times a day. Stop. Stop. Stop." Why are they doing that? They're saying, "I'm not going to live like my mother. I'm not going to live like my father. Stop. I'm not doing that." That's their first step. Their second step is, "I'm going to borrow this value from this person I married. I'm going to borrow this confidence. I'm going to borrow loyalty. I'm going to borrow religion, faith. I'm going to borrow trust. I'm going to borrow those, right?" And so they say, "Stop" first, then they borrow a value. And now they look like they're pretty good at it. They look like they really have the value. And now the person who's married them from a 10 home thinks, "Wow, you're a lot like me. You're a lot like my family. You're a lot like who I trust," right? And so why? Because the bucker is literally faking what they don't have. They don't have those values. They didn't get them. They are borrowing those values. And so now that they're borrowing those values, they start to act them out. That's the third step. Act it out. And so they get really good at this.
Hmm.
And now, when we're talking about buckers, we're talking about chaos kids who are coaches, politicians, lawyers, rodeo cowboys, nurses, right? We're talking about all kinds of people that are living seemingly productive lives, but they're bucking to do it. Now, what happens to a person raised high on the scale? They think they're really like that. They think they're really like that all the time. But what's happening is they're going through the three-step process inside,
Yeah.
and they don't see it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And one day they snap. They literally fall apart. And what happens when they fall apart? All the values in that vat down in the bottom, that subconscious world, it starts coming up. And they start to lose all the values they had. And it happens, boom, like really fast, like in a week. It just suddenly, they're just not doing what they did. They're literally not believing what they believed in. They're not caring about what they cared about. They're not liking what they like. All this stuff is gone. And it happens overnight. So that's what my book is about. This is not the woman I married. I'm coming up with another book, which is This Is Not the Man I Married, for women.
Hmm.
So that's really what the whole idea is. Childhood makes marriage. And so when I'm always trying to say childhood makes marriage, I have to say it all the time because people don't, like, I never heard that before, right? Like you told me, I never
Right.
heard it.
Yeah, I never had heard it.
I,
Let me clarify just a couple things because you're throwing a lot out and I love it.
okay.
But I want to make sure that the audience is getting these couple pieces that, kind of raised up the hackles on my neck a little
Okay.
bit. I'm like, all right. So, first of all, did your wife know that, like, consciously that you were doing this, sort of studying, learning, evaluating of your marriage and of yourself?
She was so confident and so certain of what she believed in, she didn't care what I believed in. All she cared about is that I was doing what she wanted me to do. And oddly enough,
Huh.
she really borrowed some really good moral values. By the way, she was an atheist. Speaking of morality, she was an atheist. She didn't believe in anything in the invisible realm, right? But she didn't care what I believed. She didn't want to know what I thought. She didn't want to know anything like that. So it wasn't a relationship like that. It wasn't a relationship where I understand you, you understand me, give and take. It wasn't like that. It was, I'm the teacher, you're the student, shut up and listen, right? That's kind of how it was.
Wow. I mean, honestly, she sounds just like my ex-wife. I'm not joking. They sound like they were sisters. But okay, now the scale that you're talking about. Did you invent the scale? This is yours?
Yes. Yeah. The
Okay.
reason I had to do it is because I would deal with couples
Hmm.
in the early years, and I was thinking about, like, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from, right? And so that led to a scale of
Sure.
10 being the best place to grow up, and zero being the worst. And so once I established the scale of what the purpose, the Twilight Zone, and the Chaos World was, I was able to understand where people were what they were living in, because those numbers are not just numbers, they're values. They're
Right.
whole value systems. So, for instance, I was raised in the middle of the scale, and the middle of the scale is called the twilight zone.
Right.
The reason it's called the Twilight Zone is because it's like the movie or like the television show. The Twilight Zone is like an uncertain, strange place, right? Because what happens when a child has to raise themselves? It's a Twilight Zone,
Right.
right?
For
So
sure.
that's what I had. I had two parents who were so into their personal lives that they couldn't raise their kids. And so that's why I was in the Twilight Zone.
That makes sense. So you were also, when you were talking about the tens with the twos, you never saw a 10 with a nine. You're not saying tens and nines don't get together. You're saying you've never seen one
I've never
because
seen it.
if there's a 10 and a nine together, they're probably not coming to see you.
But here's what they do. They'll go to a Retro weekend with the Catholic Church. They'll go to a Laugh Your Way seminar with Mark Unger. They'll go to marriage seminars of different kinds, like with uh, the Men Are From Mars guy, right? So they'll go to that, and and they'll have an experience together, and they'll go, oh, okay, oh yeah, well, honey, I understand now, right? So they'll work it out because it doesn't have to be a big difference, because a 9 and a 10 don't have big differences in values.
Right.
And because they don't have big differences, they can go to a little marriage seminar and suddenly shine like a bright light because
Right.
now they're in much better shape.
Now, on the chaos end of it, and this is very interesting to me. First of all this makes perfect sense and really feels like it fits very, very well. So, I mean, I'm hearing it going, yeah, that sounds like that's probably right. Okay, but the bottom of the scale, that chaos area, are are you saying that if you're in that, because I know how adverse inverse relationships work. Also, the being in that chaos doesn't make you a bucker, right? But if you're
No,
a bucker, you're in that chaos area.
you're a bucker because you're in the chaos area. And
Okay.
the point I want to make is, let's say you're a woman and you're a 10. You were raised at a 10 home, and you're raised and you realize that you've got a husband that's kind of like got a kind of seedy past that you're really not really proud of. You don't really like his family system is not good. You don't like it.
Okay.
And so you've got this feeling, but you have a life that he's made for you where he's actually given you what you want. And so typically, and I've talked to these women are really pretty happy with what they have. They like what he does. They like how he is. He's bucking, he's bucking, he's bucking. They don't care why he's bucking. They don't care about his personal struggles. You're going through a three-step process internally and you're not telling me about it? No, Buckers never tell about the three-step process ever. They
Mm.
will never publish that. So the woman doesn't know, but she needs to know. She needs to know he's going through the stop, borrow, and act out. She needs to know that. And it's hard to do it. It's really hard for anybody to do it because you've got to struggle so much internally in your mind. And so when women don't know that, it's going to come. And so if a guy's going
Mm.
through that process, he's not going to do it forever. And so I see this that goes from 35 to about 50 years old. That is the place where all this bucking is taking place. And that's the place where all
Wow.
that suppression is. And so they're doing all the suppression. The wife doesn't know, the husband doesn't know, and they're surprised and shocked when it happens. And so that's what I had to write this book because I've been spending time with these people for 15 years learning about their stories. And so now I've got a lot of confidence to write about what they tell me
Yeah. No, the
because
bucker. Go ahead, please.
the person who's talking to me is not the lever. The levers don't talk to me. The levers on the chaos side don't talk to me. The people who call me are the people who are purpose kids. They have their heads together. They're resilient. They can bounce back, right? But they're really hurting from this chaos kid, this midlife crisis. That's very
Mhm.
hard on them. And so that they really can't handle. And so that's why they end up talking to me. And so all the stories I have about the chaos kids are from these purpose kids. The purpose kids have told me about them. They haven't told me about them. The chaos kids don't tell me I'm a chaos kid, all that. So I coined the
Right.
term chaos kid. And so now people are feeding it back to me like I'm a chaos kid. So they tell me that.
I mean, that's pretty good. If you're getting your own stuff back that you created, that's
Yeah.
kudos. That's all right. Um, I am curious. Does the bucker are do they know or are they aware that they're a bucker?
They don't call it that. I got the name from bucking Broncos,
Sure.
right? So I see how they throw off the rider. by saying no. That's step one. No, I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
That's bucking because you're bucking the way of the family. You're bucking the way of your father. You're bucking the way of your mother, and you're fighting your subconscious mind. And that's a hard job to do.
Hmm.
And it's a very little understood phenomena. They just don't know what's happening. And like some men, some women that are married to these buckers, they don't really care because, hey, it's not my problem. I
Right.
got the good stuff, you know. I got the happy wife, I got the happy husband, right? They're productive, they're likable, right? They're charismatic. They look good, right? As long as they look good, I'm okay, right? So what I'm doing is I'm warning them that if you're married to a bucker, you need to know it. You need to know it before the explosion happens. And so that's what my warning is. My warning is childhood makes marriage. You got to know what's in that childhood because when people marry, they don't really look into their childhoods. They joke about it, a lot of humor in talking about childhood, but the humor is covering over what really happened. That's the reason the humor is there, and it shouldn't be. The humor's, you know where humor belongs? Humor belongs in two purpose kids who marry each other. And they got stories of what happened at the camp and what happened at the boat and what happened in the ski thing, right? They have all the stories that are funny, right? That's where humor belongs. But humor does not belong in a chaos kid who's using humor to hide what happened to them, right? So look, Oprah Winfrey, she did a book with a psychologist and it's called What Happened to You. That's the name of the book. And the whole thing is about childhood trauma. Oprah book for crying out loud, the biggest, name
Yeah.
in the world, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember
She
the
writes,
Oprah Book Club. Yeah, I remember
yeah, right,
that.
right. But this is what happened to you. So she actually worked with this psychologist to literally tell stories of her childhood and his childhood and other people, because this is a guy who works with traumatized children. So when they use humor, when the chaos kids use humor, they're hiding something, and nobody knows what it means. And so that's really what the big message is. Childhood makes marriage.
So you meet with these folks. Um, they come together. You interview them. You talk to them. You're able to sort of place them on a scale. Once you've done that, once you've kind of identified who it is you're working with, okay, are you trying to get people to change? Are you trying to like promote awareness? What becomes your role, and then what are they left with once they find out what numbers they are and who they are?
So what happened in the last 15 years, I started to teach a course on energy.
Okay.
And the reason I taught a course on energy is because how did I live through this 40-year marriage? Energy. Energy is how I lived through this. So the if we think about the idea that there's energies coming out of us, and people say lots of words. They use lots of words to describe energy, and it's not particularly helpful. So what I did is I developed these seven invisible energies that I talk about all the time. So seven energies are coming out of you. You don't know they're coming out, but they're coming out. And they're coming out all day, all night, all the time, right? So what's in the energies? When we I'll just name it the seven energies for you. Number one is my mood. Number two is my attitude, and number three are my feelings. So these three, we're familiar with these. We've used those words a lot: my mood, my attitude, my feelings. The next three are not so easy to see because my sensitivity, my energy, my frequencies, and my vibrations. So that makes up the seven. So mood, attitude, feelings, sensitivity, energy, frequencies, and vibrations. All together, that makes up the waterfall. Now, what we didn't hear, and that's not a widely known idea, is that you can change the energies themselves. And so if you don't change them, if we take what I think, what I imagine, and what I believe, and let's say that's the engine that actually feeds the energies: what I think, what I imagine, what I believe.
Okay.
Now, people don't think in terms of making something happen different in the world with energy. That's not how they think. You
Sure.
want to change the world, you use your hands and you use your mouth and you do something. That's how they think, right? So what I'm teaching is energy changes the world. What you think, what you imagine, and what you believe is an energy, and it changes the makeup of the waterfall. So what people are doing is they're not tuning into the waterfall. What they're doing is like, I don't feel good, or I feel weird, I feel happy, I feel sad, right? That's what they thought. They talk like that. So when we look at my mood, we're looking at an emotion that you feel because of an outside event. That's a mood, right? And so when you're looking at an attitude, you're looking at an emotion that you deliberately focus on other people. When I have an attitude, I'm going to show it. I'm going to show my attitude, right? So that's an example. So I've described these seven energies as what happens. It's emotion, emotion, emotion for the first four. They're
Hmm.
all emotion, all
Okay.
driven by emotion. But energy is driven by thought, and waves drive frequency, and molecules drive a vibration. So those three are different: thought, waves, and molecules. So there's a book, the molecules of belief are no, it's what book is that? The I know biology of belief. That's what it
Ah,
is.
okay.
Biology of belief. I got it right there. Biology of belief. So the idea that molecules can change by what your energy is a really big idea. It's like a quantum physics-y kind of idea. But when you just think of it simply, I have seven energies, and my waterfall is going out all the time. If I can change what I think, if I can change what I imagine, if I change what I believe, I'm going to change the makeup of the waterfall. And that means that what energy is going to go out, people are going to feel it, they're going to feel better because of it. And when they feel better, they're going to treat me better. And if they don't treat me better, it's because my waterfall's all screwed up. I'm upset. I'm worried. I'm tense. I'm anxious. I'm frustrated. Right? Whatever those negative things are, I'm putting it out there with the waterfalls going out there, and people are feeling it.
So do you coach them on how to change these different energies and in
That's
doing so
that's what
change their waterfall? Is that the deal?
so that's what the first initial change idea is. I've got to change the seven energies. If I don't
Interesting.
change the seven energies, people are going to react the way they always react.
Right.
They react to the way I feel, right?
Yeah.
So if people always react the way I feel, these energies are always going out. I really need to pay attention to what the energies are. And so if I go out and change the energies, people are going to start to feel a different feeling. And when they start feeling a different feeling, I'm going to feel lighter. I'm going to feel happier. I'm going to feel why is that? Because I think differently, I imagine differently, I believe differently. Now,
Yeah.
changing what you think, what you imagine, what you feel, that sounds easy. And it's not easy, not at all, right? Because that's
Yeah.
all mind work. It's mind work, not body work. It's mind work. And so that's really what the focus of my course is to get good at changing the energies. And the reason we're doing that is because we have to leave the world of fear and enter the world of love. And that's the big goal.
Hmm.
Leave fear and enter love. So how would you leave fear? It's not going to be easy because you have this, I call it the rat. My analogy is the rat on the ship. So you're a cruise ship and you have a rat on your ship and you don't know it. And then you marry somebody and they have a ship and they have a rat on their ship. So we have two rats, two ships. Okay. The two rats are talking to each other through a phone and they're sending an energy back and forth called against energy. And this energy is so intense, the ships are separating. And so now the ships don't know why they're separating because they don't know they have these rats. So your ship goes to seminar, you find out you might have a rat. And so you go through the trouble to find the rat and get it off the ship. Now, this is a different situation because now we have two ships, but this time we have only one rat. And what is the rat in the analogy? The rat is the pain of your childhood, the messages in your subconscious that are still there. That's what the rat is. The rat is repeating all those ideas that you were raised on, right? And so if you're a chaos kid, you got a lot of rat down there, right? So
I
the
see.
picture I paint,
Okay.
I paint the picture of the two ships because a ship is a good thing. The rat on the ship is a bad thing, right? And now it's very clear. I need to get my rat off my ship. But if I get my rat off my ship, what about her ship, right? Well, she doesn't get rid of her rat. You get rid of yours. One rat can't push two ships. And that's what's so good about the rat idea. One rat cannot push two ships. So that means the separation slows down, the tension slows down. And now we got one rat off one ship. We don't need to get the other rat off the other ship. Why? Because that ship is a reactor. They react to everything. And they react to every mood, every feeling, every vibration, every frequency,
Man.
everything you're giving off, they're reacting to it, right? That's what the rat does, right? So you don't want the second ship you're attracted to, married to, you don't want that person to not be a reactor. You want them to be a reactor. So what your job is to become the creator. You create what you think, what you imagine, and what you believe. And when you think, imagine, and believe, you're getting good at it, you're changing your waterfall. And that energy is being felt by the other ship. And
So that's
that's
what
what,
you did.
yes, that's what I did.
You became the
That,
creator.
yes, I became the creator.
Got
And
it.
so that's why I'm explaining it this way, because getting the rat off the ship is a really important idea.
Yeah.
Because now I take responsibility. I have a rat. Oh, yeah, my childhood. Sure, there it is. There it is. There's my rat. Okay. And it doesn't matter who I marry, they're going to have a rat, but I don't have a rat. And so now I can change my energy. And now what happens is that ship follows me. That person wants to follow me. They want to be around me. Because why? Because I'm happier, because of the way I think, because of the way I imagine, because of the way I believe. So I do this little experiment, and I'll tell a guy, I want you to imagine a moment where the two of you were really in love and really happy. Give me a place and a time. And they'll say, uh, Antigua at the so-and-so hotel, right?
Yeah.
And say, you got the scene? So see it in really great detail and really see what she looked like and see how you felt. And look at that scene and feel it. Okay, now imagine details in that scene, all as much as you can, as the trees and the benches and the sandals, and imagine all the detail. Okay, and now tell me what you believe. And then he lights up and he tells, oh my, like my life is going to be fabulous, right? He says some wonderful thing, right? You thought a thought, you imagined a picture, you believe a belief, right? There's the illustration of the power of think, imagine, and believe. Because when you
Hmm.
think, imagine, and believe, if you start to, you never did it before, but if you start to learn how to direct it, how to guide it, and actually start to run it day after day, you're going to change that waterfall. It's going to change. It's not going to be what it used to be. Because I check the waterfalls. People tell me about what their waterfalls are doing. I'm anxious. I'm worried. I'm tense. I'm nervous. I'm frustrated. I'm bitter, right? They name all these things, right? Well, of course you are. You're not managing the waterfall because you're not managing your mind. So that's really what the focus of the waterfall is.
Wow. Um, okay, let's go back just for a second to childhood makes marriage because you made another statement that I picked up on, and it was about the cheating gene.
Yes.
So now that I've heard all of this stuff that I've just heard, this is making a lot more sense to me. But maybe you want to touch on that for folks because that is also, I mean, this is fascinating. That is also I hate to use the same word twice. I mean, I'm a podcaster, but it's a fascinating concept because so many of the guys I'm dealing with are dealing with that particular issue,
Yeah.
it may be impending. And it's like, look, infidelity is what it is. But I mean, you're talking, it's a gene, is what you're saying in effect. And I know you're not actually talking about like the literal gene, right? You're saying it's
Yeah.
built into. I'm going to let you finish this. Go ahead. Tell me
Okay.
how this works.
Okay. Cheating gene. Why did I say cheating gene? Because people all relate to genes. And the science community generally came to an idea that it isn't even true because genes, that what the word is expression, the gene expression, is really guided by the way you think, right? So there's no fixed gene, okay? But the world believes there is a fixed gene. Like I got the cheating gene, right? So
Right.
what is the cheating gene if there were such a thing? It turns out that fathers who cheat on their wives create a quote unquote cheating gene because the son can feel the cheating of the father, even though it was never published, even though it was unknown, even though he hid it successfully, the son still feels it. And so what happens to these sons is they grow up with the cheating gene and they have the magic of attracting women and not just any women. They attract chaos women. They
Wow.
attract chaos kids.
Okay.
Literally, I've seen it up close and personal. It's amazing how chaos women are attracted to men who have the cheating gene from their fathers, who cheated on their mothers. Like, wow, that's the
Interesting.
cheating. That's the cheating gene. Yeah, it literally must. It's like a morphic field that forms from the father to the son.
Huh. Not
It's
what I thought you were
true.
going to say.
It's also true in women. True, women
Really?
women who are really loose and change partners. They give the daughter a cheating gene, and they can't stay loyal to anybody because that biological crossover has come that says I'm not loyal to anybody. You're not going to be loyal to anybody either. My mother had five boyfriends, that kind of thing. My mother was married six times, all that kind of thing. That's all part of the cheating gene, where I can't be loyal to a person because the parents built a system where you can't be loyal to one person. Again, that's all chaos kids. That's not purpose kids.
Sure. Now, in your experience, does the cheating gene, so to speak, follow gender lines? Like, does it have to be the father passed down to the son, or could it be the father cheating passed down to the daughter, for
It
instance, or vice
it
versa?
it it doesn't cross over
It
genders very
doesn't.
well. It does.
Okay.
It goes really gender to gender. It goes really well.
Much more
So
apt.
mothers who are cheaters, daughters who are cheaters, fathers who are cheaters, sons who are cheaters. The crossover is not very popular. It's not very
Well,
often.
that makes sense to me too. So I just wanted to double check though and make sure with what we were talking about. Wow, I got to be honest, not where I thought you were going to go with that. But
Okay.
that's again just fascinating. There's one more, if you'll indulge me, that I really wanted to ask
Yes.
you about because as I was reading through some of these points, there were things that just kind of make you go, "What now?" You know, this was probably the last one that really kind of stopped me in my tracks because you hear it all the time, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it with everything you have going on. So the "I love you, but I'm not in love with you."
Okay. So what is that? What is that famous line? And why does everybody know it?
Right.
Why do they all know? It's like they all went to the same school. Like I love you, but I don't. What is that? That's actually a way for the rat to express a chaotic idea of the childhood. What is I love you, but I'm not in love you? I want to look good. And this is kind of where I'm going to reinterpret the statement.
Sure.
I want to look good. I don't want to look like the bad guy. And because I don't want to look like the bad guy, I'm going to tell you that I'm in love with you. But let me wipe that out now. Let me tell you that I am not in love with you. I don't have romantic feelings about you, but I do love you as a person. I love you as the mother of my children. I love you for really boring reasons that you don't buy into,
Right.
right? That's why they make the separation. And the separation is made because I want to look good. I want to look good and say, I love you. They want to say that. What they should say is, I hate you and I want to destroy your life. And I'm divorcing you. That would be the truth, right? Right?
I think that's how it comes out. Yeah, at the end.
That's, I hate you and I want to destroy you. But here's the other thing that you want to know about. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. The men who speak that are soft-hearted men. Soft-hearted men are men who really care about relationships. They really care about who likes who. They really care who's mad at me, who's upset by me, who doesn't like me. That's a soft-hearted man, right? He really cares about that stuff. A hard-natured man doesn't care about those things. Hey, the bottom line is here's the facts, Jack. Here's what happened, right? And I'm not doing this anymore, and we're done, right? That's a hard-natured man, right? So hard-natured men don't say, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." Who says that? Soft-hearted men say that. The men who never want to look bad.
Hmm.
They don't want to look bad to anybody. I've seen soft-hearted men extend the divorce process really far away because they don't want the family to see them as the bad guy. It's
Hmm.
because they're soft-hearted. Because soft-hearted men are really sensitive guys. They're really kind of like they always want to look good. They don't want to look bad. They always want to be like, how do I look? How do I look? They really care about stuff like that.
Now,
And
where are
so,
those guys on the scale? Are they in the Twilight Zone
no,
area? Because the
soft-hearted men could be everywhere, up and down the
oh,
scale.
no kidding.
Yeah, where you are on the scale doesn't matter whether you're soft-hearted. Soft-hearted is a internal condition that you have in your as part of your personality.
Hmm.
It's so I'm a soft-hearted man. I was married to a hard-natured woman. That's that story of Larry and Marcia, right? See, that's where I learned hard natured, soft hearted. I learned that from her. So,
Interesting.
I love you, but I'm not a love you. It brings up soft hearted man.
Wow. I love this. Now, you've got a PDF that can help people. Obviously, you have the book, but is there also a PDF? Did I read that right, or am
Yeah,
I
yeah.
getting that wrong?
There's some free things you can go to you can save this marriage.com,
Okay.
and there's some free things there. And then I have larrybilotta.com, and there's videos and stuff there. And then the Larry Bilotta channel has a lot of videos of all these kinds of ideas.
Awesome. Okay.
That
And then, of course, the book, which is
yes,
available
yeah,
everywhere or just on
yeah.
those sites or on Amazon, or
Well, Amazon's the dependable one. So this is not the woman I married. That's the book.
that's the
And
book right there.
you see, there's the guy, and there's the woman down there. She's
Interesting.
walking away.
Interesting. Wow. I mean, you unpacked so much, and I love everything that you just said. My head's kind of reeling, to be honest with you, because it really does make sense. And now, of course, I'm thinking of people I know and guys I've talked to and situations they've been in, and I'm like, well, but maybe it's because, and I can't do that while I'm running a podcast. So I'll have to think
Yes.
about that later, and when I'm reading your book, because I'm definitely picking that up. Okay, so at the end of the show, and in interest of time, I'll go ahead and we'll kind of wrap it up here, but especially today. I want to make sure that I give, my guest sort of the last few minutes. You have the floor. Is there anything that I forgot to ask you about or that we didn't get to? Is there something that maybe we talked about, but you want to make sure you bring it home? Or is there, like a leave behind nugget or all three? I mean, hey, the last several minutes are yours. The floor is yours, sir. How do you want to finish this up?
So thank you for the opportunity, Rory.
Absolutely.
Um, so I I think the simplest idea is the best idea. So when I say childhood makes marriage, that's three words. I think I remember three words. Childhood makes marriage, but that's not the definition of what it means. And that's really where the value of that statement comes from. It comes from the meaning. What does it mean? Childhood makes marriage. It means that whatever happens to you in those first 10 years is going to stay in the subconscious mind. It's going to be carried into adult life. You got this different body now, right? And you think everything's different because you got a different body. No, your subconscious mind hasn't changed at all. That's why childhood makes marriage, because the whole childhood comes up to the body changes, but don't be confused by that. That's still in there. The subconscious still holds all those messages. And so if you're not a bucker, if you're not a person who's been fighting these ideas from your subconscious, then you got to remember childhood makes marriage. Well, what kind of marriage do I want to make if childhood makes marriage? Oh, wait a minute. I don't think I want that kind of marriage. And so now it becomes a matter of like, I need to get some help. I need to get some people to advise me on how to have a marriage that's not built on my childhood. Because my childhood carries marriage instructions. That's exactly what made it. My parents made the marriage. And so that's the marriage I've got as my model, right? Childhood makes marriage. So I wanted to simplify the idea into three words because people can't remember much more than childhood makes marriage, right? So that's the most important idea. The most important is, and it's, the other thing is every time I interview somebody, and I've done over 1,000 interviews, I always ask, have you ever heard childhood makes marriage? I say that a lot, right? And they go, oh, no, I kind of, and they'll reinterpret some other little wishy-washy idea, right? And no, childhood makes marriage. That's what you got to know. And you got to know what it means. What does it mean? It means whatever happened there is going to be here. If it was there, it's going to be here. That's the most important idea.
Wow. Just wow. All right. Author of This Is Not the Woman I Married, Larry Bilotta. Larry, thank you for everything today,
Thanks,
for all
Ray.
these ideas, for all this, knowledge, and for just a brand new perspective on all this stuff you talked about today. I loved it. I'm sure the listeners are loving it. I can't wait to hear the reaction we get when this episode comes out. So thank you for all this today, sir.
Thanks, Ray.
It was
It's been
great.
great.
Absolutely great. Folks, this is another awesome episode of the Power Man podcast. The reason that we bring powerful men like this on with these powerful ideas and new perspectives is because we're all about trying to help you, the listener, and frankly ourselves. I think also, I'm sure I can speak for Larry also that we're both learning every day as well. to accomplish our missions, and our mission of providing and protecting and leading our families, being better men tomorrow than we are today. New perspectives like this, a new way of looking at it, a new way of thinking, it all does kind of come back to the same thing we're always saying. You have value. You matter. And don't just sit there and, say, hey, I'm going to go gently into that dark night and this is what God planned for me. I'm going to have a miserable marriage. Work on it. Talk to somebody like Larry over here. Read his book. See if there's something that you can do to make your life better and your wife's life better. Guys, do what you got to do. And at the end of the day, lead. All right. That's what you got to do. All you have to do is believe it.
Great message. Great,
Thank you,
great,
sir.
great message, Ori. Thank you.
Until next
All
time.
right.